Jessica. Welcome back to my channel. Today I want to cover 5 of the best Kindle Unlimited reads that feature gods or demons. So the reason I group gods and demons together is because they're sort of like two sides of the same coin, or they're often used in that way. They are usually immortal, supernatural forces that have the most level of power and are able to sort of play around with mortals or use mortals as playthings if they want to, but at the same time have some kind of investment in mortal lives and interacting with humans. Depending on the power structure that we are discussing, demons are a little bit less powerful than gods, but it really depends because demons traditionally inherit a lot of powers from the devil, and I would argue that the devil has godly powers. He is the foil to God in a traditional God Christianity setting, and he has the power to seduce humans. He often seems to be super strong and smart. He's very crafty. He has a whole assortment of powers, and he rules a separate realm of the underworld. All of that to me strikes him more at a god level than a demonic level. The only thing demonic about the devil is that he is batting for team evil. So I put the two together because a lot of times demons is shorthand for a bad god as opposed to shorthand for a supernatural being that's lower than a god. Without further ado, here are my top 5 favorite Kindle Unlimited reads that feature gods or demons. So starting in at number 5 is going to be the Red Winter Trilogy by Annette. The Red Winter Trilogy takes place in a modern Japan, and it features Emmy, who is going to be a vessel for a goddess. She's been training most of her life and preparing, so she knows all these ancient Shinto ways. She knows all these different dance moves and special symbols and ceremonies that are meant to help deal with yokai, which are demons. The story has a very Inuyasha purity style feel to it. Eventually Emmy, she meets a yokai that's in trouble and she helps him, and as she continues to aid him, she finds out that he is actually quite powerful. She agrees to help free him completely, and during this process they also find out that when she ascends to godhood and becomes a vessel for this particular god, she's going to die. Her consciousness is going to vacate her body, and it's just going to be an empty vessel for the goddess, which she doesn't really want to do. She thought that she and the god would be one and that she would have some kind of consciousness and immortality that way. So it becomes this adventure about saving this one yokai, restoring him to power, and also about stopping her from ascending to godhood. And there's a lot of interesting flavors going on there. There's a lot of interesting interactions between yokai and gods. And the other thing that's interesting here is that the yokai, they're called demons and they're called bad or whatever, but it's explored more in depth in this trilogy. And it's really talking about how the yokai are more like animal spirits and the gods are more aspirational. So while the yokai are about the physical realm, the here and now, things you can touch and be tactile with, the gods in this case are more interested in aesthetics or things like loyalty or respect or purity, things that are a term that could be embodied in a bunch of different ways. And of course there's an interesting love romance because it is Annette, so there's always some kind of love story going on in her stories as well. And overall I found the trilogy really exciting. It's a big epic story. Even though it's not necessarily about saving the world, it's more about saving Emmy and saving this one yokai that she's sort of become fond of. There are larger world implications for it. And I love it too because it is an urban fantasy. We get to see gods interacting with the modern world, what they like and don't like, how they explain why humans do or don't remember their interactions with gods, and why there aren't as many interactions as you might expect between like the holy realm and the earthly realm. Number 4 on my list is going to be the Darkest Flame series, Demon Kiss specifically. Demon Kiss obviously features demons. I think we are going to get a couple cameos from gods later on because there's only 2 books so far in the series, with a 3rd book coming out later this year I believe. But so far it's about this teenager and her falling in love with 5 demons. It is a reverse harem story. And the demons are more fae-like than godlike. This is my sliding scale of demons. They have powers, but they can die. They don't have the powers to create things or to completely destroy elements of the world. Like they could kill certain people or they could damage certain cities or whatnot with their powers, causing a rampage, but it's not the same as what I would call a godly power. They don't seem to have any godly intuition. So I could slide these into like a fae style story, but I'm keeping it here in the demon and god section because the demons and gods here do follow a traditional angels and demons fighting format, and that's that these angels and demons are fighting over souls, and they're fighting in the earthly realm, sometimes physically, to try and destroy one another to gain an upper hand. And until these demons meet their center, they are immortal and they don't get damaged very easily. And it seems to, spoiler alert here for the second book, if you haven't seen it, stop right now, but in book 2, it looks like not only does the center damage allow the demons to take damage, but she starts to gain some incredible powers that make up for the fact that her demons can now be hurt. So that's a cool little thing, an evolution, and we might even see our protagonist evolve into someone with godlike powers, even if she doesn't have the immortality or the wisdom that comes with that. I really enjoy this story. I think it's really funny. It's a crazy off the wall story. It is set in modern days, so it technically qualifies as an urban fantasy or a paranormal romance, and it's a reverse harem. But I just think there's a lot of cute and sweet moments. There's a lot of spicy moments in it. And there's just so much here that has me laughing. I think if you're looking for something that's just fun and an enjoyable romp, this could be it for you. Number 3 on this list is going to be the Spawn of Darkness series. This series is a series that tackles a lot of heavy and dark topics, so trigger warning for any kind of abuse, domestic abuse, physical abuse, trigger warning for suicide. I think the only thing that isn't touched on in this book is drug usage. So it's a very dark story, it's very heavy, but it also brings a lot of levity, fun, and it gives you that survivor's joy high at the end as well, if you're looking for that. The story surrounds one woman who makes a wish and summons 4 gods. So right away there's that god element that we're looking for. And these beings do qualify. They have immortality, they have significant power over the world, and they have their own realms, they live forever, and it feels that way. You get that epic sort of like, I'm dealing with something that's a lot more powerful than me kind of feel, and that's someone that's more knowledgeable, more able to handle and tackle things than me. And I like this story too because it really explores what it means to be a god, where God's powers come from, and what they can do if their powers are fading, if gods try and take over. There's like that warring god aspect. The question of multiple gods and where their limitations are. And there is the whole question of what it means to love a god. Can you do that? Why would you do that? Just how would it work? A lot of that is fun and it's exploratory, and I think it's just a good time for everyone. Number 3 on the list is going to be the Numina Trilogy by Holmberg. And this series is actually more about summoning spirits or demons than it is about gods or demons per se. And it's actually quite interesting. There's, a guy or a gal who can summon beings, and they can use human vessels, and they summon the demon or spirit into the human vessel, and that vessel transforms into another entity. So that's actually a really unique and interesting way to handle it. And beyond that, in Holmberg's story, they actually discuss what are these beings, because summoning is a crime against their god in this story. So it explores why this is a crime against their god, whether or not these beings are really that different than their god. If there's a positive and holy being, is there an evil being down below? Are these demons that being? It asks all of those interesting questions. Can you summon that god being into a person the same way you summon these lesser beings? Is that what the difference is? And it's fun because there's an interesting story going on in there. We're following this one girl who is a prisoner whose body is able to handle summoning a demon into it. She escapes her summoner who doesn't treat people very well. She's trying to find out what happened to her brother. So we're following her, we're trying to see what happened to her brother. She's making these connections with other people. She's reaching out. She has like this fun, innocence, trusting sort of side to her because she spent so little of her life out in the real world. Most of it has been very sheltered and not like a great situation, but she just thinks it's these people who are bad people. She thinks the rest of the world is a lot better than what she's experienced. And the whole time she's doing this, they're finding out she's exploring her relationship with this one demon that's able to be summoned into her. She's exploring her relationship with the divine and the superstitions around that, how she's had to come to terms with that being that might not even accept her anymore because she's become a vessel for this demon. And then she's exploring other possibilities, like, is this being that different than the one that can be summoned into her? So all of that is really cool, it's really complicated, and it explores some interesting theological questions. At the same time, it gives us a great fantasy adventure story. And the last Demons and Gods kind of story available on Kindle Unlimited that I think is really worth looking at is Penryn and End of Days series. Also, the first book is known as Angelfall by Susan E. And this story is really dark and grim. It takes us into the weeds right away. We start in a modern day setting that is facing an apocalypse because angels have come down from heaven and are terrorizing people. Or if they haven't come down from heaven, they've come down from wherever they are and they're terrorizing people. And basically the whole world has stopped functioning. There's not electricity or power structures. People are just sort of hiding and hoping to escape these angels. And in particular, we are following this young teen girl whose mom is not mentally well and whose younger sister is wheelchair bound. And she's trying to keep this family unit together, keep them all safe and protected. She's doing all the foraging. She's trying to keep people quiet during certain times when these angels are about. She comes to a situation where she realizes she has to move her family. And while she's moving them, her sister is abducted by these angels. And she gets a hold of an injured angel and is able to nurse him back to health and basically try to blackmail him into helping her find her sister. So all of this is really interesting to start, and it gets darker as we go on. We get introduced to different kinds of demons as well, which is where the angels and demon part come in. And the other thing that we're exploring in this, demons are fallen angels. So why are all these angels that are brutal, why do they still have their wings and their goodness when some of these demons doing exactly the same thing, except they've fallen and they're evil and whatnot. So that's an interesting thing to explore. It's interesting to explore where these angels and demons came from. Why are they fighting each other? Where is God and the devil in this situation? And how do humans handle this? So all these heavy topics are covered. Is humanity turning in on itself and trying to save just each individual person at the cost of the larger society? Or are humans banding together for the larger good and trying to make a space for themselves? Will we develop relationships with angels and demons? Is that possible? Or are we always going to be looked at as lesser to them? And why are we looked at that way? So all that's really fun. It's a young adult story, but I think that it could easily translate into new adult or even adult categories, just because it's very well written and it tackles a lot of themes. Also, there's a romantic element in the story, but it's not very strong. I wasn't interested in the romantic element, and there were still a lot of other things for me to look at and pay attention to. And I think it really captures those questions, like what is a god? What is a demon? Why are they categorized that way? What do those greater powers mean when they interact with humanity? And one honorable mention I have that used to be on Kindle Unlimited and is no longer on Kindle Unlimited is actually going to be the Grace Blood series, and the first book in it is Death's Dancer, and it is by Jasmine Sivera. And I want to mention this for a couple of reasons. First of all, the book is phenomenally written and it's not very expensive. I would definitely recommend the purchase of this book, even though it's not available on Kindle Unlimited. And you could read just the first book and be satisfied, although the second book is also really good. The other reason I recommend this is Jasmine Sivera started out as a National Novel Writing Month winner. That is, she completed her novel in November, and then I assume she continued to edit it before publishing it via Kindle Unlimited. And I always want to support independent authors. I especially want to support authors who just wrote something because they were passionate about it and they really cared. And you can tell both in Jasmine Silvera's story as well as in the actual writing that she just really loved what she was doing, that she just had a story she felt really strongly about that she wanted to share, and she went out there and gave us all of that feeling and heart. So I have to support her on that alone. But of course the other element is the story good? And in this case, Death's Dancer is excellent. It is a story that takes place in Russia about a famous dancer, perhaps the best dancer in the world. And what she does is she dances to get the attention of the gods, and that way have them pay attention to hear and or grant your prayer. And she's really successful at this. She's so successful she gains the attention of the local necromancy ruler, and the two of them have to work together to try and protect the territory they're in and otherwise save their homeland and everyone they care about. And I think it's cool because there's so much dance information in the story, so much about music and dance. It feels like Jasmine Sivera really researched this. It feels really true and authentic. And also just the idea that dance was something that was done in ancient religious festivals to get the attention of the gods. That has some historic precedence, and it's really interesting to see it being brought up in modern times. The necromancers themselves have an almost god/demon-like presence within the story, and I respect that she was able to first create something that was really powerful like gods but removed, but still interacting very vaguely. And she was able to put something that's not as powerful as gods, or like down here, gods, than like the necromancers. But the necromancers are still so much more powerful than humans. They're way down here, you can't even see them. And we can get like that personal power interaction here. Way lower level than gods, but still so much more powerful than humans, that it has that same strong impact. It's still asking us those same questions. What do you do with an immoral being? What do you do with a being that can use magic on you? And that can grant wishes, that can destroy cities, all that kind of stuff. It's just interesting. It's a fun power trip. It's fun to see that interaction, that play. So this story, even though it's not on Kindle Unlimited, is excellent. And it is something I read originally on Kindle Unlimited, but I would buy it, especially at the price that she's selling it for, no question. Definitely, if you have a little bit of extra money besides your Kindle Unlimited subscription, I would pick up Death's Dancer. It's so good. It's so much fun. And it has a sweet romance. I think the romance in it really works. You know, I felt like there's chemistry between the two characters, and like they shared a couple of really sweet moments that were enjoyable. So those are my top 5 Kindle Unlimited God and Demon reads, plus one bonus that you can get on Amazon. I have all the books linked below. I want to thank everyone for getting to this part in the video. And if you enjoyed this, please go ahead and leave a like. And if you like content like this that just talks about urban fantasy, paranormal romance, books and stories, feel free to subscribe. I put out weekly content on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Central Time. And I have a lot more ideas and fun things coming up. But if there's something particular you want to see, or if you have something that you want to suggest to me in specific, feel free to leave me a comment down below. I really love recommendations. A lot of the books I've been reading recently have been off of other booktubers' recommendations, but I would totally do a comment or other suggestion as well. So thanks for listening to me, thanks for making it to the end of this video, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!